Welcome to Built Forward, the podcast exploring where construction is heading over the next decade and how AI and other emerging technologies will and won't transform the industry. I'm Jason Jacobs, a longtime startup founder, investor, and the host. Let's get into it. As I've been making the rounds learning how the construction industry actually works, one theme has surfaced over and over again. Not bad workmanship, not lack of demand, cash flow. Even profitable contractors can find themselves in trouble if they have to wait months to get paid. Today's guest has spent the last several years building a business specifically around that problem. Guy Saxelby is the co-founder and CEO of Earlytrade, a marketplace that lets subcontractors get paid early on invoices that have already been approved. Instead of borrowing from a bank, subcontractors offer a small discount in exchange for getting paid sooner, while general contractors put their idle cash to work, earning a return. No lender sits in the middle. Guy is a chartered accountant who started Earlytrade after late payments in one of his own businesses cost him employees. Earlytrade began as a general early payment marketplace for large Australian enterprises before finding construction during COVID when demand for liquidity surged. Guy made construction the company's sole focus in 2023. Since then, the company's processed roughly $10 billion in invoices, grown to more than 200,000 subcontractors on the platform, and expanded into the U.S., where Guy is now based. In our conversation, we unpack how the model actually works, why construction became Earlytrade's focus, what contractors often misunderstand about cash flow, and where Guy thinks construction finance is headed over the next decade. Guy Saxelby, welcome to Built Forward.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, as I told you before we started recording, you're a super credible construction tech founder, and although I've done some stuff historically in prior lives, I have no credibility in construction. I'm in the early stages of building it, and this is episode 2, and you're a pretty good guest. So thanks so much for agreeing to be a guinea pig and coming on my little show.
Oh, look, as I was saying before we started, I think it's amazing that people like you are compelled to work in construction. I think it's a great industry, and let's have some fun.
Yeah, I mean, as we talked a little bit before we hit record, I'm loving my entree into the space, and I'm learning so much every day, and I'm talking to so many interesting people, and I still feel very much like an imposter, so I'm treading carefully, and certainly not coming in with all questions and no answers, but this is a primary vessel for me to learn. So is talking to people like you. So maybe to kick things off, we can kind of start there. So give me the I don't want to use the word elevator pitch, but the 30 seconds on Earlytrade and what you do.
Yeah, sure. Earlytrade founded in Sydney, Australia, 2018. We started off with the thesis that, maybe we can solve late and long payments. I think it's a problem that affects all types of businesses and sectors. I teamed up with my co-founder who was running advanced data analytics at the Australian Stock Exchange. We built this, it's like a capital market, but for short-term cash flow with no lenders. And so we started servicing all sorts of businesses, large procurement businesses, food and beverage, utilities, waste management. And then during COVID, we, in Australia, I don't know if you remember, but they locked us down so hard. Like they shut everything down. We couldn't leave our houses for like 23 hours a day. And the only 2 reasons you could leave your house was to do exercise and to do essential grocery shopping. So basically, all of Sydney turned into people wearing activewear, walking around with grocery bags. It was pretty sad, actually.
That kind of sounds like how I walk around in my normal life today. I should also tell you, by the way, this dates me, but back in 1996, I spent 6 months living on Coogee Beach in just outside of Sydney.
Now, the snobs in Sydney will say that's not actually a beach; it's a bay. I'm not one
of
those. Well,
and thus the Coogee Bay Hotel, right? Is that still there?
It is. So during COVID, construction was considered an essential service until the government actually shut it down. We had a number of general contractors come to us to see if our technology could help them pay their subs early. So we launched with a couple of them, and it worked really well, like a factor of about 8 times better than some of our other programs. And so we basically, we started signing more construction clients, and then eventually in 2023, we made the decision to vertically integrate and focus just on the construction sector. And there's plenty of reasons why it works so well for our product. But, then after that, what unfolded is we started to sign more construction clients. Obviously, being sector focused in one market, led us to international expansion. We expanded into the UK. We expanded to the US in 2024. I moved my family out here, as did my co-founder in 2025, sold my house in Sydney. Everything's gone. There's nothing to go back to.
Where do you live now?
I live in Colorado. We're based in Denver.
And why did you pick Colorado coming into the U.S.? And also, why come into the U.S. To begin with?
U.S. is the biggest construction market out there. Why Denver? Denver's got a lot of good schools, great outdoor climate and lifestyle. Housing is affordable. And then during post-COVID, a lot of people migrated away from big city centers into it. So there's a growing tech talent ecosystem there. It's not Silicon Valley expensive. And so what we found is a lot of young families, young people, they come out of school, they can afford housing, they stay, and they build a lifestyle there. And it's time zone wise, pretty good time zone from London and Sydney. It's a great hub. I mean, our clients are spread across the country, and so being on either coast hurts us in terms of getting into market and shaking hands. And it doesn't hurt that I'm a big skier. I like to ski, so that helps.
So how big is the team today? And is it a distributed team? And how much of it is in Australia versus Denver versus somewhere else?
Yeah, we're distributed. We've got a small team in the UK. We've got about 15, 20 people in Australia, and about 15 people in the US. We just raised around those, so we're hiring, and we'll probably be through 37. I mean, we've got about 6 job offers right now out. And we'll probably be 50 by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. And what's the same about the U.S. construction market relative to Australia, and what's different?
Yeah, good question. It's what's different that makes it really interesting. So our product effectively is early payments. So the window of opportunity to pay early is anchored by the payment terms. In Australia, those are regulated to 30 days. So there's only really a 30-day early payment window. That's where we started the company and the product, and it was pretty successful there. In the US, there's none of that. There's no regulation. It's effectively regulated by the free market. And so, yeah, you can pay people in 90 days. Will you attract and retain the best tradespeople? Maybe not. But there is no real limit on what payment terms are. There's also Australia, about 2/3 of the construction volume is public spending. So government building infrastructure, things like that. In the US, it's about the opposite. The private sector is the dominant sector. So that means there's a lot of private businesses and family-owned businesses that are running their firms, and those owners are more receptive to saving money for their families, right? The government isn't that receptive to saving money, and our product saves our customers money and gets cash into the hands of the subs faster. And also obviously the size, right? The size of the US and the number of firms out here is probably an order of magnitude bigger than Australia.
So if I'm hearing right, it sounds like not only is the U.S. a bigger market, but it's also a market that has less regulatory protections around not abusing payment terms, which means that that there's more flexibility and demand for Earlytrade's offering and a bigger market to serve. Yeah, got it. And so in a world without Earlytrade, and maybe we'll take the U.S. market, since it sounds like, directionally that's where more of the attention from the company is going. Although, correct me if I'm mishearing. But what does that payment landscape look like in a world without Earlytrade? And then what does it look like for companies that do adopt Earlytrade as a service?
Construction supply chains are starving. Construction sector has the most bankruptcies out of any sector, all due to cash flow issues. General contractors make nets 3 to 5% net profit margin, and they hold about 13% of their revenues in cash. The subs make about 15 to 20% net profit, and they can't access affordable working capital. So, and it's not due to any one bad actor. It's just a structural way the industry works. So risk falls down. Shit rolls down the hill, right? Risk falls down and is pushed down the supply chains. The owner, the person who owns the development, who's engaging the general contractor, they will push as much risk onto the general contractor as possible, and then the general contractor will do what they can to push the risk to the subs. And that's just the way it works. I've got a lot of friends who've founded companies that want to try and change that. I think that's more difficult than actually creating a solution that works within the system that is created. But effectively, in the US, another difference is pay when paid or pay if paid. So a GC is not obligated or required to pay a sub until they've been paid by the owner. And so it's not that the GC doesn't want to pay. The GC wants to get... GCs make money when they work fast. Any delay or slowness erodes their margin because they've got to sit on the site, they've got to manage it for longer, they've got to replace people, blah, blah, blah. So they want to get stuff going quick. But the windows of which owners are paying GCs is getting longer. That's what we're observing. Maybe it's just a way of protecting themselves or holding on to more money. I'm not sure. But no matter the relationship the trade has with their GC, they can't influence payment earlier because because there's no money until the owner pays them. And so this is kind of how the industry exists today. With the trade, way it works is, if you've got a good balance sheet, if you're a strong general contractor and it's competitive and you want to attract and retain good subs who prioritize you, money fixes problems, right? And so, what you'll do is you'll launch Earlytrade to your supply chain. You'll invite them to use it. We onboard the subs, educate them on what they do, and then it's really over to them. And so every time there's an approved invoice that comes through the system, so the work's been done, it's been approved, they can see it in Earlytrade, and they can request early payment by offering a discount of their choosing. So the subs set the terms as well as the GCs, and we just facilitate this early payment negotiation at scale on our platform. And since inception, we've processed $10 billion of invoices.
So it sounds like instead of having a fixed structure, like, if you pay 30 days early, it's X. If you pay 60 days early, it's Y. If you pay 90 days early, it's Z, or something like that. It sounds like it's a marketplace where the sub is kind of testing, like, how much do we need the cash early, and also how little pain can I get that cash, and then it's kind of an auction. Am I hearing right?
That's right. It's a dynamic discounting model where supply and demand drive the price. The GC sets how much cash they want to make available, and then the demand is how many subs. Now, they still offer what you just said, which is a linear discounting model, right? That's, 2% discount for 10 days early. It's based on the time. Those aren't really used that much. And so the difference with our system is, the amount of subs that are adopted and the amount of early payments and savings it creates is a multiple of what a linear discounting model can create. Because there's other factors, like why should it just be 2% for 10 days early? That's quite a high price, right? So anyone that isn't willing or doesn't have to, isn't going to use it. That's not to say they might offer 0.7% for a 10-day early payment, right? And so you're losing all the people who might offer more, and you're also losing the larger subs who are never going to trade at 2% discount, and they're doing $20 million early payments, but they would trade at something that's closer to their cost of capital. And so that's kind of what our marketplace allows. It allows all types of businesses and trades to get access and trade at a rate that they feel is fair.
And then you just for anything that's processed via Earlytrade versus just traditional payment, you just take a take a cut, essentially?
Essentially, it's a gain share. So we share in the savings that is created.
Got it. And so so which one of those are you selling into? Are you selling to the sub or to the GC?
We're selling to the GC initially. The GC is our customer. And then we're selling into the sub. So, the sub is the user. We've got over 200,000 subs that use the platform, and they're the ones requesting early payment. And the GC is the one making the early payment, but we don't build the subs. It's free for them to use. We build the GC.
And what's the pitch to the GC?
The pitch is, do you want to deliver better project outcomes? Because your supply chain's starving, they're finding predatory products to finance themselves. Why wouldn't you just offer a flexible payment option for them? They can use it whenever they want. And by the way, you're sitting on 13% of your revenue in cash in a money market fund earning 3%. The average APR, return on cash deployed in our platform, is 15 to 20%. So you're enhancing your returns in a non-forced way, and you're attracting and retaining the best trades by offering flexibility in their payment so they can actually deliver and grow.
So this is, I think the caveat to my questions is that I don't come from this world. And so if a trained ear says, like, this guy's not asking sophisticated questions, it's like, well, duh, like I don't come from this world. So I just want to start there. But
pretty sharp, by the way. You're actually getting to the heart of it quite quickly.
Oh, thanks. So what? Well,
don't
jinx it. But no. But my question is, if there are certain products like if you're like a subprime mortgage, let's say, right, where it is for people without the credit scores that can attract attractive rates, but at least they can get a mortgage so they can be a homeowner, right? And so what my question is, you mentioned attract the strongest subs, but is it almost inverse that the more a sub demands this, the lower the more precarious their financial position?
Look, that's a common misconception, and obviously subs that need it use it, but the majority of the volume comes from the subs that are growing, and the easiest example to explain that is our busiest high volume periods are summer. What is that? It's because the whole country is under construction during summer. Half the country is frozen over in winter and summer. You'd think that if subs needed it, like when it's winter and there's not a lot of work, they'd use it more in winter. But no, they use it when there's lots of work on. And you got to remember, subs are paying their labor every 7 and 14 days, okay? And then they have to procure the materials 60 days before the project starts. Then they deliver the work. Then they wait 60 to 90 days for the invoice. Who's funding that? Like, how are they going? Like
So,
how?
so
Sure.
is cash flow management, is that, like, again, this will show my ignorance to the trades, but is cash flow management just like a massive, like, what percentage of the contractors are extremely stressed about cash flow management? Is it 100? Is it 50? I'm just trying to get an order of magnitude.
Stressed is the wrong word. Stressed is a portion of them who are about to go out of business. They're all stressed about it, but yeah. So stressed is the wrong word. Have you heard the saying "cash is king"?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it is everything to a sub and a general contract. The whole industry runs with cash. When there's no cash, nothing moves, and it's a domino effect. And so, while some of them might not be stressed, they manage it in a very disciplined, methodical way. And you know, this is kind of what industry, what builders will say. General contractors are risk managers, right? You almost want to be more careful what work you take on versus what work you say no to. And so a good general contractor say no to more than they can take on. Because if you look at what a general contractor does, it wins the job and then coordinates and manages all the subs and takes a 3 to 5% margin for doing that. Now, if the subs aren't delivering or there's cash flow issues, that margin can easily erode, and they can actually be, there could be a claim against them. They'll actually owe money. So it is incredibly important part of how the industry runs. And I think it's a huge inefficiency to our productivity that we can't get cash flowing faster around the supply chain.
And in terms of the typical customer profile, is this a pain that's felt up and down the stack in terms of size of contractor in commercial and residential? And then same question about your ability to deliver. Like, I know certain solutions below a certain threshold, like they might have the pain, but it doesn't make good financial sense for you as a vendor to be able to deliver under a certain threshold of size. So yeah, I guess maybe speak to each of those as you think about the right customer profile.
Yeah, absolutely. So the predominant base of our customers are commercial general contractors. The average revenue profile of one of our customers is 500 million. But we work with general contractors that go all the way down to 50 million of revenue. We've got a handful of multi-billion-dollar clients as well. We are starting to work in civil contracting as well. So stuff on the ground, bridges, tunnels, that sort of stuff. A lot of that, their profile of supply chain, they do a lot of self-serve. So whereas the commercial general contractors sub out 80 to 85% of their revenue. So the low-hanging fruit for us is, helping and getting as many subs on the network as possible. And so you go after the ones that sub out the most first, if you can understand that. What was the other part of the question?
So you talked about who you serve, and I guess the other part of my question is: are you serving there because that's where the pain's most acute, or are you serving there because that's what makes the most sense in terms of the resourcing required to deliver from an early trade standpoint?
No, it's not. It's not about the resource. It's about where the demand comes from, right? So if you think about it, if I'm a civil contractor and it depends on the sizing, right? But if I self-serve, so if I do 80% of the work myself and I only sub out maybe 20% of it, I still use subs, but it's not as an acute problem for me as if I was a commercial general contractor that subs out 80% of the work. I'm very reliant on those trade partners to deliver. I want to make sure they're looked after. And if they have cash flow problems that I don't know about and they go under, well, I could have prevented that by offering something like Earlytrade. And so it's really where the demand has come from the market, and that's what we're tapping into. But we want to, land and expand, right? So the strategy is to really dominate the construction sector. And then there are other adjacent sectors that we really like, which I probably won't say publicly yet, but we really like in the built world that still serve the same sort of mission, but it's not just like a general contracting client, right? Because this technology.
Without mentioning the names of the sectors, can you say what it is that you like about them, or does that give it away?
Not really. No, it's built world stuff. So people building actual stuff, industrialized supply chains, right? And if you think about what we do, we're really arbitraging the cost of credit down the supply chain. So, there's a lot of industries where the customer is actually the smaller business than the supplier, right? We want the customer to be the bigger business, and then their suppliers to small and medium businesses. That's what we look for.
And in terms of the access to actually participate in this from either side, is it embedded in a Procore or one of these larger kind of systems of record? Is it standalone? Like what are the mechanics of it?
So we sit on top of their existing ERP, feeds us data that allows us to run the market. When trades are agreed, we feed back data to the ERP, which automatically adjusts the payment times and payment amounts, and everything's automated. So instead of paying Joe Blogs in 30 days for 100, you might be paying them in 2 days for 99.
Is there any involvement needed from the ERP approval, integration, or can you just work across everybody?
Yeah, we integrate with the ERP. We've got turnkey API integrations with many. It's part of our business. And so, you just really configure the ERP to accept Earlytrade, and then we work through the ERP. Yeah.
And is this primarily a CFO sell, or who tends to be the decision maker inside these larger GCs from an Earlytrade standpoint?
Yeah, it's someone in the CFO's office, and increasingly someone in the operational side as well that's responsible for delivering these jobs on time and on budget.
And what are the biggest misconceptions or objections that you either heard in the early days or are hearing now, and how do you respond to them?
Early days, people thought we were factoring. There's no lender in this at all, right? So there's no credit risk, fraud risk, or risk. We don't touch the funds. We let the GCs pay on their own AP rails. That comes up less and less now. I think people are understanding the model a bit better. Misconceptions are, the construction industry has grown up not paying. So sometimes it's a foreign concept for them to go, hold on, why would I pay them early? And really, if you take a long-term macro, if you can mitigate as much of the risk as possible, which we have in our platform, then paying early allows you, like if you're paying 40% of your supply chain early, you're going to have a well-funded subcontractor base that's delivering on time. It's going to be able to hire when they need it, et cetera, et cetera. Now, our platform allows the general contractor to switch on and off who they want this to go to. So they can choose, we call it eligibility criteria. They can exclude certain projects, certain subs, and certain owners if they think that they pose a risk. And so by giving them the controls to control that, we just show them the product and like, okay, so if I don't want it to go to these guys because they're dodgy, then I don't have to give it to them. And they're like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, the other misconception which you touched on is it's only the desperate ones that will need it. And that's not the case. And we can show that through, through our network, and we can show them the subs that offer the most and use it more. Well, in fact, they haven't gone out of business. The ones that use it the most are the ones that are growing and have lots of work on. Far larger segment than the ones who are the last option. Those are some of the objections we handle.
And I'm sure you were asked this by investors along the way, but if you integrate with ERPs and the ERPs are big and have all these resources and they just look at this, I mean, maybe it's not a button, but I'm picturing like an Earlytrade button, it's like, link up with Facebook Connect. No, it's like, use Earlytrade to foster early payment, right? It's like, if I'm a big ERP, it's like, I could put one of those buttons and it could be called, like ERP trade instead of Earlytrade. But I'm sure that under the hood, there's a lot more to it. Can you touch on whether that question has come up, how you've answered it, and then what goes on under the hood that you feel like gives you some defensibility from being copied by some of the incumbents?
Yeah, well, I mean, just starting with the facts is normally the best way, which is we're partnered with many of the large ERPs, and we have been for many years, and they haven't tried to replicate or copy us yet. Although it is validating if there are bigger players coming into the space. You're right in what you said. It's not as easy as pushing a button. There's a lot of work that goes on in managing contractor relationship, getting them onboarded, getting them training, and that's a moat. It's a challenge as well as an opportunity because I think the crux of it is the big ERP players are really set up to service the general contractor. And a lot of the large ones are quite concentrated at the top end, the top 400, top 400 GCs. We specialize in the mid-market, and so the ERP market penetration is much more fragmented. So there's a lot more ERPs servicing that. And so even if they do offer something, it's only to a certain portion. But for me, these ERPs are set up to service large general contractors. They're not set up to service subs. At the end of the day, we're a subcontractor platform, So while the GC is our customer, it's the sub. We live and die by if the sub sees value in it, wants to use it, and wants to keep coming back. And, I think it's a strategic asset that we've built such a large subcontractor network. I think it's a strategic asset that the users at all the subcontractors and general contractors are fairly senior in the CFO's office. And a lot of the ERPs have, well, I know they don't have massive sub products and offerings that can really scale into the network, because the way the industry has traditionally viewed it, coming from, I don't want to say any names here, but like I said before, give it to the largest player and make them push it down. Make them push it and force it down so that so everyone else has to accept it. That is an old school way of thinking, in my opinion. And I think the real power in the network comes when you get critical mass of the subs, because they will vote with their feet. They will work with you or not based on what solutions they have. And it's a harder journey to get there, right? Building a marketplace is difficult, right? But once it hits scale, much more efficient than a B2B SaaS business in terms of gross margins and EBITDA, but also like if you own regions, you can, that's where the flywheel really takes off. And so while it might be a longer journey to the promised land, I believe that if we get it right, this is much more powerful than asking clients to mandate people to use it. Because I tell you one thing, subs hate being told to do something and then have to pay for it.
So it seems like there's a uh, there's a bit of chicken and egg in terms of sometimes fresh thinking can be borrowed from other industries and can be quite advantageous in an industry. So if you take construction, like there's a piece of it which is like, is this an idea that can help me, right? But then there's a piece of it that is like, well, you don't come, why you? Like, you don't come from this world. Like, you're saying it can help me, and while it might make sense on paper, like I don't trust it because it's coming from you, and you haven't been steeped in my world for decades. How how do you guys break through that chicken and egg in the earliest days? And what are your thoughts in terms of construction of founding teams, in terms of the importance of coming from the world that you're selling into?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Really, really difficult in the early days because they say exactly what you said. They say, who are you? You're a foreigner, firstly. Secondly, you're not from construction. So you can't fully speak the lingo like I can, and you don't have that experience. So in the US, we had the Australian case studies to lean on, and then you obviously get, well, it's different here, right? It's different here, and so what we did is we aligned ourselves with high integrity people, people who are credible, who were smart, early adopting type, innovative people who had credibility in the industry, and they understood the model, and they thought this is going to work. And so we leveraged their networks and helped. And then a lot of the early customers were very forward-looking, tech innovative type CFOs who could see and they had the confidence in their thinking to say this is worth trialing. And those were our first 10, 20 customers in the States, and they're all good friends of mine, to be honest. And now we have enough customers, case studies, and subs that we just say, go talk to this person, go talk to that person, go to understand it. And so I'm very loyal and affectionate to our customers because they advocate for us a lot. And in this industry, that means a lot. But we've also run, we're coming up to our third year now, and we've got, many successful programs. So we know how it works. We know how different regions in the States work. We actually, we're assigning customers that their subs are already on our platform with other general contractors, so they can directly ask their own supply chain, hey, you use this? Yeah, we use it with here and her and whatever. And so, and it's still difficult, but it's getting easier the more we build the network. And I hope that answered the question.
It does, yeah. And I mean, relatedly, and I guess this is less Earlytrade specific and more just generally the state of the state in construction. But I want to go back to something you said a little while ago, which was that you have friends that are trying to change the way things are, where you're trying to work within the way things are. I don't know if I got that exactly right, but it was something to that effect. And I'm thinking about that a lot as an outsider coming in because construction seems like it has operated the same way or similarly for a prolonged period of time, and for good reason, given it's the physical world and the stakes are high. And but at the same time, if you started from first principles today, it seems like a lot of the workflows could be streamlined and would maybe look different than they do today. And then the question is it better to try to revamp the workflows, right? Or to just tune the ones you've got because it's too hard to change, right? Even if they would look different if you started from scratch today. So first, like, am I getting that right? Does that match your observation? And how do you think about that as an innovator?
It's a big topic, right? And personal circumstance comes into it as well, right? So, so with my, so the way I think about it is good luck to you if you're going to try and change the legal frameworks that run construction. I don't think you're going to do it. I mean, I'm not going to be able to do it with my resources yet. Maybe that's a second and third business, but these are different state rules. So there's like 51 different types of rules. They're interlocked with old payment systems. There's fragmented software platforms and ERPs and counting systems, and it is such a mess. It is hard enough employing and selling to customers in 50 states and employing people in different states than it is trying to change every state's rule, right? So I just don't think it's realistic. And as a founder, I'm an optimist, but that's got to be tested with rational reality. And so now maybe if I was on my third business and I had $1 billion, maybe this is a noble cause to try and do. It's not really where my skill set lies. This is lobbying and legal, legislative changes, and you're going to be, you're never going to be making anyone happy. You're going to be making some people happy and other people unhappy. And so I just think it's a fool's errand to try and work that way. I think what has kept technology out of construction is these sorts of things. It's every project site's different. Every state law is different. Even subs can't even get access to good insurance policies because every subcontract is different. So every insurance policy is custom, right? And there are firms I know trying to solve that problem. I think that's a great area as well. But it's just so different. It's not widgets like in the manufacturing industry or the retail industry, or the software industry. It's very easy to scale that but the complexity comes with all these different rules, risks, legal frameworks, procurement models. And so once you get into the detail and you actually like deep dive on it, it's so complex that it's overwhelming. And so why actually try and change it? Why not try and find something that, and this is how we went along designing Earlytrade. We wanted to design a system that was non-invasive, that provided a financial benefit without being a financial product. We don't sell a financial product, but we still provide the same benefit as a loan. So we don't need to be regulated. We're currency agnostic. We don't put an intermediary between a general contractor and a sub, which they hate that so much. We don't touch the money. Like, it's kind of like, why did everyone like Uber in the day? You connect your card up, you press a button, car comes in, you get in, you get out. No, frictionless, right? Like the rudimentary example, but the reasons our customers and users like us is the technology is not there. It's invisible to them. They just click a button and the cash comes into their account next day. So, we have tried to design an architecture that is so non-invasive. There's no one stepping in. No one's really taking any material risk here. And so if make all that shit out, you're more likely to have people go, okay, well, I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about that. Okay, I'll trial it. I didn't have to go through an approval process. I'm not taking debt on, so I'm not risking any property in my business. The money just turns up in my account and I'm in control of what price I set. And if the market is higher than what I'm willing to pay, I don't participate then. I wait till it comes down again. So we've effectively created the platform so that it sidesteps and mitigates all these complex issues of the industry. Makes sense.
And it seems like there's a big distinction philosophically between the call it privately held or family owned, I guess family owned, let's say, versus the private equity consolidators that are coming in. Is that rearing its head in your world at all? And if so, are you noticing any distinctions between between those types of contractors?
Yeah, well, now you're getting into a new set of issues, right? So, I mean, private equity isn't that prevalent in construction. And when it is, everyone thinks private equity is they come in, they cut costs, they get EBITDA bigger, and then not in construction. The margins are too small to do that. And so the way private equity makes money generally in construction is they build up as much cash as possible. And then they sell the work in progress onto someone else who can actually deliver it. They keep the cash, right? So their incentive is different to a normal family-owned general contractor. Family-owned general contractor, which are, by the way, the far majority of construction businesses in the US are owned by families or employees. These they want to build a sustainable business, and they need profit, and they need good balance sheet to do that. And so, they're incentivized to look after their supply chains and their trade partners because they want to kind of build up over time. And, they need to make money, put that on the balance sheet in retained earnings. And so also they have a little bit more of what's the word? They have a bit more of an appreciation of a dollar because they can see the dollar comes to the family, right? And so, whereas a private equity corporation is looking to flip a business, right? So it's not necessarily a long-term play. So we don't really see private equity that much in the construction space.
And separate topic, but I'm actually recording with Kevin Halter later today, and I think he's an Earlytrade board member, and I know he's talked in the past about this kind of $10 million wall in the trajectory of venture-backed software companies in construction tech. And why do you think that is? And is that something that you worry about when you think about scaling Earlytrade? And I guess since I tend to ask my questions in groups, I'll lump another one in there too, which is just how do you feel about all the venture dollars going into construction? Is that asset class well suited to this category?
Oh, good questions. The $10 million number is just a tried and tested benchmark, right? If you can make it to 10 or more, you strip a lot of the business risk away, right? That product market fit risk, the go-to-market fit risk, you're at a scale. So I think it's a pretty good benchmark. Do I worry about it? I mean, as a CEO, I worry about a lot of things every day. Your life is just suffering through that, really. But I don't have any relationship to that number. I mean, that number is, a stepping stone on the way to 100 million. I worry about how we get to 100 million of revenue. That's what I'm focused on doing. And then, do I think venture dollars into construction is a good thing? Yeah, I do. I think it's going through cycles. So I think venture can certainly operate in a FOMO type environment, and there's a lot of examples where a lot of money is being put into companies that haven't succeeded. But I think we need to continue learning, and I think the industry is really good at working it out. But it is different to normal software investing. I mean, you do have to kind of have an appreciation of construction works, and there isn't many VCs that have that, in my opinion. But what I see is a hollowing out of the middle of venture. Certainly in contech, I see a lot of people who are willing to back it and Series A. And then you've got these large horizontal fangs, Andreessen Horowitz, that sort of category, that if you get big enough, and that's really like big checks, right? There's not as much in that middle layer, B, C, D, E. And you have growth equity coming in. Because once you're above 10 mil of rev, you're looking pretty good for a growth equity check, right? And so that's where you 20 to 51% portion of the business, they're actively in the management and board, maybe not management, but on the board. And that's an interesting path to take as well. But typically you have to choose one or the other. It's hard to work with both, but more money coming into the sector to solve issues for construction is a good thing.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, how much AI is infiltrating as it relates to your internal Earlytrade business, and then same thing in terms of what you're seeing in the field. Do you think it's largely hype and overblown, or early, but it'll be impactful later, or are you actually seeing it, impact how you're running things and how your customers are running things in material ways?
Yeah, so look, I can speak on the money side and not for Earlytrade. I think it is too early to really see huge impact on the industry as a whole, but I'm not expert at AI for the whole industry. With Earlytrade, one of the main strategic bets we're making with this Series A round is building agents into the marketplace. So these agents will onboard, educate, and negotiate with the subs, because we literally can't get to all the invoices in the platform ever. And so the humans, which feels weird to say, the humans triage and prioritize the high value stuff, which is typically the larger subs. The whole vision is to help the small and medium businesses. And so agentic AI agents actually doing that. And we've started testing this in small batches, and it's pretty cool to see a sub auto onboard an agent auto onboard a sub, take them through the demo, and then have a trade happen, have an early payment request happen straight after that. And this is happening now, and we're looking to scale it up. That's kind of our main use case for it. It's to drive more value into the marketplace for the subs and the GCs. It's to serve them faster with more intelligence. But overall, it's not an efficiency play for us. It's a growth play. We can serve more users using agents. I'm not seeing a lot of innovation coming out of the big construction technology companies when it comes to AI. What I'm seeing is a lot of them try and work out what they need to do, seeing a few early acquisitions, which look to me like acqui-hires. So the hiring the talent that can lead the strategy. When I talk to CFOs, the two general themes that they talk to me about is, how do we make more margin, and how can we leverage AI for our businesses? Those are the two things they want to know about. And those are the sort of the hot topics that they're looking at. I'm seeing, general executive and employee usage of AI go up. I think everyone's using, certainly from a company perspective, our engineers are using like the different frontier labs, coding tools. We're rolling out enterprise Claude for our sales and go-to-market staff right now. Our customers are using AI to vet our model and make it make sense, and our investors are using it. It's the first diligence round I went through where both sides heavily using AI. So it's interesting. I think it's really cool. You can do a lot more with it, and you can get way deeper analysis and insight from it. But in terms of big hits for the industry, I'm not seeing them, me personally. But Kevin might have a different view.
And if to put on your futurist hat for a moment, if you look out a decade from now, what are the most profound changes that that you think we'll see in construction relative to how things operate today, and what are the things that'll probably operate exactly the same?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's hard. Look, it would be remiss of me not to say robotics entering construction projects. A lot of the large general contractors are investing in and looking at deeply how some of the unsafe work can be done, some of the repetitive work can be done. I mean, a robot doesn't work a 8-hour shift, right? It works 24 hours and doesn't complain. So that's a change that I'm watching closely. You can see Tesla and Optimus building stuff out. A lot of people think that the Optimus robot will be this personal serving. I can tell you the first use cases are not serving humans. They are mining the ocean for gold. They're working on the moon and Mars. They are doing these highly unglamorous jobs that we don't do yet. So that's something I'm pretty interested to see evolve. I think it's going to be a very controversial fight with the trade unions and protecting workers and things like that. So we'll see how that evolves. I read somewhere it's like construction doesn't need more robots. It needs more intelligence in terms of like there's so many siloed platforms, either through a major consolidation or through AI solving this data switching problem, because it's fine that the cost to develop software trends to zero. Fine, I think everyone can see that. But if you can't move your data from one provider to the other easily at a low cost, it's not going to help the connectivity of the industry. And so I see over the next 10 years massive consolidation, either through M&A or actually through innovation, connecting a lot of the systems that allow companies to easily see everything right from the basics on a job all the way up to multinational corporations. So I look forward to that. I think that will help the industry a lot. They'd be just two trends that I'd point.
What about from an Earlytrade standpoint? If Earlytrade's been successful beyond your wildest dreams, 10 years out, what does it look like?
Yeah, so our vision, and what really gets me excited is we want to build the operating system for payments and risk in construction. And the first product is early payments and cash flow. But as you work, in payment long enough, there's so many other things that impact the payment, and so we, our focus right now is building a big network, but there are other products that we're testing to bring into our network that can offer larger share of wallet, more value to the users, and create a more sticky experience for everyone. So, we will have, in 10 years, we will have well moved beyond a point solution to a diverse product suite platform. And we will still be focused on the same things, which is enhancing productivity for construction and the economy, and doing it in ways where we're removing friction. We like to remove friction and create seamless experiences. It's really tough to do, and while monetizing it. But if Earlytrade is wildly successful, then I'll know the industry is in a better place than when I found it. And that's kind of what keeps the legacy part going for me.
And for anyone listening that's inspired by your vision and traction and latest big funding round and momentum and just you from listening to the show, who do you want to hear from and how should they get in touch with you?
And come contact us directly. You can do that through the website or through LinkedIn. We're hiring a lot right now, so apply for one of the jobs or reach out. If you've got interesting ideas or you think you can, come and help us on our mission, we'd love to hear from you.
And Guy, it's been such a wide-ranging discussion. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you wish I did, or any parting words for listeners?
My parting words would be, you got to take risk because scared money don't make money. Right.
I feel personally attacked. Why'd you look at me when you said that? Yeah, playing it safe, doing a podcast all day and not building anything. But no, Guy, thank you so much for coming on the show. I learned a lot, and wishing you and Earlytrade every success, and hoping we can keep in touch along the way as well.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
That's it for this episode of Built Forward. I hope you enjoyed it. If you found it useful, share it with someone building in the industry, and follow the show so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.